Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here for the March releases, and as I was going through and compiling the list of everything coming out in March is apparently gonna be the big month this year. You know how there's usually like a spring month and a fall month of really big releases? You can usually kind of figure it out based on when Sarah J Maas releases her books. It's normally May, September. March is looking like it's gonna be like a big one because I normally come up with a list of really big releases, really big sequels, and it was like never ending this month. So I'm gonna jump into the really big releases and sequels and then get into the 5 that I am most excited about in the month of March 2018. First and foremost, probably one of the most anticipated releases of the year is Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This comes out on March 13th, and this is the final installment to the Illuminae Files? What is the actual name of the series? I think just the Illuminae trilogy files, I'm not sure. But I am also in the hype train for this book. I'm so excited. I know shit is gonna hit the fan in this book, and I'm so ready for it. So in a couple weeks, we will get the conclusion to this series. The other huge release that got announced not super long ago, but again, the hype for this book is going pretty strong because the series has a die-hard following of fans, but that is for Restore Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is like the new book in the Restore Me series. We thought it was a trilogy. We thought wrong. This is the 4th book. This is coming on March 6th. By the way, you guys are gonna notice a trend in this video. March 6th is like the day. I didn't realize how many books I pre-ordered that are coming out on March 6th, but I feel like I should probably like leave a present for my mailman because there's gonna be a lot of packages delivered that day, at least at my house. Then on March 20th, we have The Heart Forger coming out by Rin Chupeco. This is the sequel to The Bone Witch. This is actually not the final cover. This is just the arc that I received for review. This is the final cover. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the turquoise and orange cover a little bit more. This one reminds me of Christmas, but either way, these covers are just gorgeous. I just love them. I love that it still matches the first one. So, March 20th. We will get to this one. Another book for March 6th is The Case for Jamie by Brittany Cavallaro. This is in the like Sherlock Holmes gender bent series. I personally haven't read this. It's not quite my taste in books, but the people who have read it love it. So, March 6th, another book. Look out for it. On March 27th, we have The Lost Crow Conspiracy by Rosalind Eves. This is the sequel to The Red Rose Rebellion. I love these covers. I just love them. Not quite a sequel, but a 0.5 book that is coming out on March 6th is Ink Mistress by Audrey Coldhurst. This is the, like, prequel. It's the 0.5 to Of Fire and Stars. And we also have Hero of the Fall by Alwyn Hamilton, the 3rd book in the Rebel of the Sands series. Is that the trilogy? Is that the 3rd one and final one? I'm not sure. I don't know. But that's all I'm going to cover as far as sequels. The list honestly goes on and on and on, but there are just so many big releases coming out. So those are all of the sequels that are coming out. I normally do sequels and like the really big releases that everybody's talking about. Usually those are about authors that we know and love, and it's like their next book that's coming out, but I'm actually going to talk about the huge releases in my like detailed my most anticipated 5 books section right now because they're all debut authors, they're all brand new books, and I can't wait for them. Not exaggerating when I say I've actually pre-ordered all of these books, so like these are all books that I'm actually going to read. They're not just ones that I'm like kind of excited for and I'm gonna see what happens. These will be at my door the day of release, and I'm very excited for it. So let's get into those. So getting into possibly my most anticipated release of March, I don't know, it's hard to narrow it down, but the first book that I want to talk about is, of course, coming out on March 6th because that's when everything is, but that is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. I pre-ordered this immediately after hearing about it for the very first time sometime last year. Whenever I first saw it, I pre-ordered it. And the main reason for that is the original tagline for this was Hocus Pocus meets Practical Magic. If you're ever gonna sell me on a book, those are 2 movies that you should definitely put in it. I pretty much read those 2 movie titles and ordered the book. I didn't even need to know anything about it other than that. It is set in a town called Sparrow, where centuries ago, 3 witches were sentenced to death for witchcraft, and they were drowned. So every year for a brief time in summer, these 3 sisters return and steal the bodies of weak-hearted girls and lure boys to their demise in the waters in which they were drowned. So this, it just sounds so much like Hocus Pocus. I'm just so excited. So in the story, we are following Penny, who has lived in this town of Sparrow her whole life and has, like everyone else, accepted the fate of this happening every year. But on the eve of the return of the witches, a new boy shows up in town. So I'm sure there's going to be a romance in there. There's going to be secrets and heartbreak and treachery, and it just sounds so good. I am so excited for this book. You better believe I'm going to be reading it the day it shows up at my door. The next book that I want to talk about, go figure, it comes out on March 6th, is To Kill a Kingdom. This is by Alexandra Christo, and this is a reimagining of The Little Mermaid. I'm so excited. I love siren stories, I love mermaid stories. They're just really dark and twisted. You always expect it to be like The Little Mermaid, but the whole concept of sirens is really twisted. So we are following Princess Lyra, I'm gonna go with Lyra, and she's the most successful of the sirens. She has lured, I believe, 17 princes to their deaths, and everything comes to a crashing halt when something forces her to kill one of her own. And in order for her mother, the queen, to take her revenge on her daughter, she forces her to be a human, and she can no longer use her siren song to lure people to their fate. Hence Little Mermaid. You're also going to meet Prince Elian, who is a human who is somehow lured to the sea, not necessarily by sirens, but just attracted to the sea in general, but his entire life endeavor is to murder sirens. So obviously there are going to be some star-crossed lovers happening in this story. I can't wait to get my hands on it. All of the reviews are 5-starring this. Everyone's saying that you have to get your hands on a copy of this book this year, so I'm going to. The next book that I want to talk about is the book that everybody is talking about this year. And that book is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book is just like sweeping the nation. This is a book that I saw in like the 2018 releases list that came out at the end of last year, so it's been kind of on my radar. I was kind of keeping my ear to the ground about it, and this is just all of a sudden blowing up. This is a debut author, debut book. It sounds amazing. This is a West African inspired fantasy story set in a world where magic existed. There were people who could control the elements and live their magical existence until one day a bloodthirsty king ordered magic to be outlawed. So he targeted and hunted everybody who could possess these powers and lived a very magicless existence, which sounds sad. But because of this is leaving our main character, Zélie, I'm not sure how to say it, without a mother, and her people are just kind of hopeless at this point. So she finds out a way to bring magic back to the kingdom, so it sounds like she teams up with some really cool characters and kind of explores this land. I'm not doing this justice in any way. That's just kind of the basic plot summary that I'm getting off of like Goodreads and Amazon and everything. What you really need to look at is the reviews for this book. I have yet to see anything that is less than a 5-star review for everybody who got ARCs of this or early readers or beta readers of this book. It sounds phenomenal. I can't wait to get my hands on this. This is going to be tied with Wicked Deep with which book I read on March 6th because they're both coming out then. The next book I want to talk about is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This comes out on March 20th, so I'll have some reading time before I get to this one. But first of all, I love this cover. It's so colorful, I love it. This book, I believe, is going to follow a lot of magical realism, which I'm down with. If it's done really well, I really appreciate it, and it really adds so much to the story. But this is following Lee, whose mother committed suicide, and Lee is convinced that instead of dying, her mother turned into a bird. So, obviously this leaves her without a parent, so she travels to Taiwan to meet her grandparents and kind of learn about her family history and cope with her mother's supposed suicide. While she is there, Lee is determined to find this bird that is now her mother, I guess. It just sounds like it's going to be a very harrowing and heart-wrenching story about family and loss and acceptance and grieving, but also really strong cultural family ties. I'm just so excited to read this. It looks amazing. Also, it's not coming out on March 6th, it's coming out on March 20th, so like I said, I will have time to read the other books so that I can fully prepare for this one. And the last book that I want to talk about is also coming out on March 6th, but that is called Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough, and this sounds fascinating. I haven't seen much about this, but it sounds like a book that I will absolutely devour and love. This is a book, first of all, it's told in verse, which I adore. I love it. If it's done really well, I totally appreciate it, and it adds so much more to the story. This is actually based on the true story of the iconic painter Artemisia Gentileschi. So we are following her life in Rome in 1610, and she is basically faced with the option to become a nun or to grind pigments to help her father paint. She chooses to paint, and through this choice, she became one of the world's most famous painters, even though nobody knew who she was, because this is obviously set in the 1600s, so men could pretty much do whatever they wanted, and women were pretty much just commodities at that point. So following a traumatic rape, Artemisia is forced to either live a life in silence or learn how to speak the truth in this day and age, which I'm sure would be terrifying. And the final tagline of the summary of this is what sold me on this book. This book, like I said, is written in verse, so I will read it to you. It says, "He will not consume my every thought. I'm a painter. I will paint. I will show you what a woman can do." That sounds so good. I'm just so excited for it. This is kind of a whole topic that hasn't really been touched in YA, and I'm just so excited. So again, March 6th, go figure. There's a lot of books that are going to be showing up at my house. So those are the 5 books that I'm most excited about, and those first, I want to say the first 3 are probably some of the biggest releases of the year, so I just really wanted to talk about them. All of these books are debut authors, and I am just so excited to see all the new voices that are coming into the YA community and seeing what they do, and based on all of the early readers' reactions, it's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited. So those are all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. If I missed something, or if you guys are really excited about a certain book that is coming out that I didn't touch on, please leave it down in the comments. If you like these types of videos, hit the subscribe button because I do them every month, and then I most likely will haul all of these books in a couple weeks for you guys as well. Hauls are pretty abundant on this channel, apparently. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you next time.